He didn't slam the folder or throw it across the room. Nothing dramatic like in movies, he just let it slide off his desk like gravity did the work for him. Pages fanning out on polished wood tabs, bending corners curling, and I stood there in the doorway with my hand still half raised from knocking. Even though I'd been told not to knock, just walk in, that was my job, and he didn't even look up when he said it. "You're the intern," flat voice bored, not a question, just a label, and I remember saying, "Yes, Your Honor," already feeling smaller than I had 10 seconds earlier. And then he said, "Research memo due yesterday, leave it." And I stepped forward and placed the folder down carefully, lining it up with the edge of his desk because my mom drilled that into me early. Be precise, be respectful in rooms like this. Presentation is armor. And he flicked his hand toward the corner of the desk, not annoyed, not angry, just automatic like swatting a fly. And I turned to leave thinking, okay, that's it, that's the moment. But then I saw the trash can metal dented government issue sitting right next to his desk, and on top of it was a manila folder. I recognized instantly, case label printed in block letters. A criminal motion I'd checked that morning out of habit oral argument was supposed to happen yesterday, and the folder looked untouched. No creases, no fingerprints, pristine, and I felt something tighten in my chest. Not anger yet, something colder, and I said quietly, "Your Honor, the motion in that case," and he cut me off without looking up. I said, "Leave it," and that was it. I walked out the door, clicking shut behind me. And yeah, that was the moment I realized I'd just seen something I couldn't unsee, and that was the day I stopped trying to impress him and started writing everything down. I didn't belong in that courthouse. Not really, not on paper anyway. I was the only black intern in the program, the only one without a shiny pedigree, the only one whose entire future depended on this internship not going sideways. Everyone else treated it like a summer accessory, something to throw on their resume before heading back to comfortable lives. But for me, this was it, the line that might convince law schools I belonged. So I showed up early, stayed late, took the desk. Nobody wanted, tucked in the back corner, with no window. And when assignments came down, I took whatever they gave me and said, "Thank you," even when it was triple what the others got, even when the deadlines made no sense. 50 cases in 3 days, yeah, that happened. And at lunch, I overheard other interns comparing notes. 15 cases a week, 20 cases, 10 days, and I just nodded and went back to work. Slept in the law library, ate vending machine dinners, read until the words blurred and my hands cramped, and when I turned in 18 pages of tightly argued analysis, he took it, set it aside, never looked at it. And 2 days later, he called me into chambers, let me stand there almost a full minute before speaking. I counted, old habit, and then he said, "Inadequate," tapping my memo with a red pen, and I said, "I'm happy to revise because what else do you say?" And he replied, "I asked for comprehensive analysis." And when I told him I'd covered every case on the list, he said, "The list was illustrative, you should have known that." And then he picked up the memo, held it over the trash can, paused just long enough for the message to land and let it drop. "Redo it Friday." And I walked out, sat at my desk, opened my notebook and wrote down everything. Date, time, exact words, no emotion, just facts. Because once you realize the rules are going to change no matter what you do, you stop playing to win and start playing to survive and to remember. After that, things escalated. My name became a joke, mispronounced in open court. Lawyers laughed because that's what you do when a judge jokes. Clerks pretended not to notice once he handed me a note at 10:15 for something due at 10 o'clock and then reprimanded me publicly for being late. "Is there a problem, mister?" Hollis and I said, "No, Your Honor," and he said, "Then take your seat," and I sat there with my face burning, hands shaking under the bench, realizing this wasn't about performance, it was about power. And when I asked around quietly, another intern pulled me aside and whispered that someone complained the year before. Nothing happened. No recommendation letter, career derailed. And that's when I understood the system not broken. Working exactly as designed, judges protected interns disposable. So I stopped asking for fairness and started collecting evidence, every motion denied without a hearing, every ruling issued before arguments were heard, every impossible assignment, every public humiliation, every piece of work tossed like trash, and that literal trash can moment pushed it over the edge. I went home and pulled the case, read the motion myself, solid new evidence. the kind that at least deserves a hearing, and the next day, the docket updated motion denied 2 sentences. Time-stamped minutes after I'd left chambers, and that wasn't discretion, that was negligence. So I tried to report it properly, calmly, with documentation, and I was warned to be careful, told judges have protections, told accusations without irrefutable proof could cost me everything, translation shut up or suffer, so I shut up and kept writing. The summer nearly broke me. My desk got moved into a storage closet, literally a table and chair. No window. Need the space, they said, and I worked in there for weeks, slept in the library, lost weight, lost friends, lost any illusion that effort alone earns respect. And at the end, I got my evaluation. Adequate concerns about professionalism, neutral recommendation, the kiss of death. And I walked out of that building thinking my life was over, but I still had the notebooks. Years passed. I clawed my way into law school anyway. Took jobs. Nobody wanted, represented people. The system forgot, ran for office. When I realized complaining wasn't enough, you need leverage. And 7 years later, I sat on the other side of the table while the same judge was up for promotion, routine confirmation, hearing everyone expecting smooth sailing, and then I adjusted my microphone and said calmly, "You may not remember me, but we've met," and the color drained from his face when he read my nameplate, and I didn't raise my voice, didn't rant, I just introduced exhibits, reversal rates, timelines, intern complaints, and then I called witnesses. An innocent man who spent extra months in prison because his motion was never read. An administrator who admitted complaints were buried, a journalist who verified everything through public records. And then I asked one question the judge couldn't answer. "Did you read the motion?" And the silence said everything. Because in that moment, everyone realized this wasn't personal, it was systemic, and the nomination collapsed. Investigations, reopened cases, reviewed people, released reforms, followed, not perfect, never perfect, but real. And here's the part people argue about: was it justice or revenge? Delayed. Should someone have to wait 7 years and build power just to be heard? I don't know, but I do know this silence protects abuse. Documentation breaks it, and systems don't change because they're asked nicely. They change when evidence makes denial impossible. So let me ask you something. If you'd been in that hallway, seen that file in the trash, known what it meant, what would you have done? Stayed quiet or started writing? Drop your thoughts in the comments seriously. And if you've ever witnessed something like this, something small that felt wrong but heavy, tell that story too, because the next person documenting might be watching right now.